We're going to pick up on our study of Galatians as to where we've been before. The title of today's study, now you give it a chance, is When Walls Fall. You can turn with me to the book of Galatians. I'll begin with chapter 2, verse 11. You can put your finger there because that's where we will pick up. You know, from our last study, we stepped away from a discussion dealing with the God of distinction. We talked about him being very distinct in his call and his actions. During our last study, we left off as we were sharing that in this day and time, in the season, it seemed like the lines of distinction were trying to blur themselves. In fact, it's a very aggressive agenda trying to blur lines and move thoughts that what God had put into place. It's part of his uniqueness. So we were speaking about lines of distinction that were being blurred were the sacred and the profane. They're trying to merge them so that there's no longer a clear distinction as to what God is doing specifically in this season. Between the sacred and the common, losing their distinction. And then we put emphasis on the fact that we serve a God of distinction. The summation of our thought, specifically as it aligned itself on the heels of Paul coming back from Jerusalem. He'd gone in where he had met with the council, and they were talking to Sharon to ensure that the whole thought and the whole message and the mind of God was unbroken, but it was one accord. Paul's ecstatic as they come out, understanding, even as these ones that set in place to bind and to loose on earth had embraced his thoughts, understanding the bigness of what God was doing in the hour, as they were unveiled before them. And as it was unveiled before them, they were able to make a clear distinction as they embraced Paul's thoughts and somewhat more or less ordained him as a voice, as a apostle to the Goyim, or to the Gentile, because they understood the uniqueness of what God was doing through him, to them. The same way as they seen the uniqueness of what God had called them to do, as they were speaking among the brethren. Not two thoughts, but a clear distinction and understanding the specialty of the call and the people that Paul was using. That God was using. So we said, as we concluded, we said the summation that came from all that collective thought, on which it said, when Paul was able to understand that we don't have, as Goyim, we don't have to become Jewish to receive Yeshua. If I take that name, Yeshua, and I take it to its definition, we don't have to become Jewish to receive salvation. God understands the uniqueness of who I am. And also, on the opposite side, what he's saying to their brethren, that we understood, that they didn't have to become Goyim, Gentiles, to receive salvation. Some people can make things so difficult. They make things, if they don't open to understand what God is doing and see the sensitivity thereof, they can make things much more difficult than it is. I heard when the scripture spoke, they say, he'd make it so easy that even a child could understand it. But we, a lot of time, in all of our wisdom, find ourselves, again, to make something bigger than it is. Why did he say that as such? Because he spoke in terms, in the summation, when Paul he made an excellent analogy, he captured what he was saying over in 1 Corinthians 7. I'm just going to read that quickly. 1 Corinthians 7, where if you read 1 Corinthians 7, verse 17 through 24. I'm going to read it, but I'm going to paraphrase as I'm reading. So I just want you to mark it, but I'm just going to paraphrase as I'm reading it, because this is what he was saying. He says, Paul speaking to the God-fearers, the people out of Galatia, in Corinthian. So he spoke, he says, only let each person live in the life that God has assigned him, and to live in that condition. What he was saying, he says, allow each person to live however you were. Again, you don't have to become Jewish, nor do you have to become Goyim, but let them all live and however God has called you. Then he turns back, verse 18 says, was some of you already of Jew birth? He says, then you should not try to change the ethnicity or the acknowledgement of what you are. God called you as you were to step into the fullness thereof. Don't try to undo what God has done. He says, or some of you Goyim, or some of you Gentiles? He said, that's how God called you. Don't go, you have to go through changes trying to become something that you're not. He said, whether you go through the full conversion, try to become a different step into the fullness of that culture, he said, then that's your choice. But don't blend it. That's not needed for your salvation. That's something that you choose to do. That's not something you have to do. That's what he's saying. He says, because that act of trying to go through conversion means nothing. God's looking at the heart. He's looking at what takes place. He's not looking at the outward sign like that. He comes back, he says, what is important is understanding God's word, reading it and walking it in the fullness of what he said, to align themselves according to his Torah. He said, let each person, verse 20, let each person remain as he was. Then he went to a little detail, put a little detail on it. He says, were you a slave when you're called? He says, well, don't let that bother you, because you were a bond slave. He says, then you are now a bond slave of God. Walk in it. He's not looking at you belittling because you are not, the free man at that time. If he called you as a bond slave at that time, then stay in it, knowing that his salvation is big enough to cover all. You have a unique position where you're at. That's what it says. And for a person, he said, for a person who wasn't a bond slave, but a free man, he said, then fine. Stay as you are. See, now you understand that you are now a servant of God. In other words, he says, brothers, let each of you remain in God, with God, how he called you. That's what he said. He said he's not looking for someone to be something. He's not looking for hypocrites. He's not looking for someone to belittle themselves and go into different changes because you think, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough. What can I do in order to make myself closer to him? He said, that's not the issue. God is just as close as your breath. What's he saying there, all that? He says, for God has created the earth and all the uniqueness therein. We talk about the snowflakes, we talk about the raindrops, we talk about the zebras, we talk about the various different animals, everything. Although they may look like on the same, he says nothing is duplicated. God is so unique, he says, I make a different thumbprint on every billion people that have adorned this earth. I am the God of the unique creation. He says, why? He says, because each of us play a vital role within this economy. He says, I wouldn't made you that way. Some people say, I wish I was a man. Well, God must have a great thing to do with you as a woman. Well, I wish I was taller. No, what God has made you is exactly what he needed in order for you to fit within the economy that he has placed on earth. I wish I was some famous singer. Well, God has placed you utilize you. You know, I used to say, when you start seeing some of those, people say, I wish I was Michael Jackson, I wish I was, Whitney Houston, somebody. They would say something like that. And I used to think, God has given them a platform and a stage before a lot of people. They're going to be held accountable for all that they do from that stage. They can use that stage for profane purposes, or they can use that stage and all the emphasis that he's placed them within to help someone and allow them to see him. He didn't give that gift just to entertain them and their family. The uniqueness and the rising, he's placed them in a position that they can speak that we may not have. He may not put me on that stage because he probably know I couldn't handle all that, but he says, I put you in your family, I gave you a voice, and the way that you walk and the things that you do, you got your family, everyone around you are watching you. So when I speak in terms, when I speak about God, they see God through me. They'll look up and they'll try and say, I knew him when he was so, kind of rowdy and just very boisterous and seemed like non-caring, but something happened when he got saved. Something changed. If God can do that to him, I want what he has. Because I know where he used to be, and I'm seeing a change. God used me just as I was, stuck me in the family because he's trying to reach someone else. And my life can show him. God says, as I'm moving on work, he says, let your actions so shine that men will look at you and glorify the Father in heaven, because they said, that's where I want to be. We each have a role to play within this economy. We all hold a uniqueness to this earth. That's even defined within this Torah. See, people say, well, do I have to keep all that Torah? I mean, that's 613 different laws that come down and stuff. And you look at that, and John said, no. Because some of the laws are just for priests. Some of them are just for Levites. Some of them speak to men. And some of them apply to women. Some of them apply to when you're in the land. And some apply when you're outside the land. And within this Torah, he's dealing with every facet. He says that he's covered everything. No matter where I sit, I can go to his word and I can find instruction that will guide me in my stead. Do I have to keep all those? No, that's not what he's saying. He's covered the whole gambit, but how he's speaking to you, we need to understand. It's not weighty. So we all hold a uniqueness to this earth, within this economy. He's even outlined it through his Torah. And tried to remove his distinction and trying to alter what God has put in place causes confusion. You break the confusion. You break his distinction and you have confusion. See, and that's what the council acknowledged as Paul was speaking, as Paul was sharing. They acknowledged the uniqueness of what he was called to do. They acknowledged the uniqueness of his present situation when God called him. See, Paul will say, I was Jew of Jew, according to the Torah, perfect. I'm born on the stock of Menaim. In my mind, I had myself set to where I could be part of the Sanhedrin. He's a prodigy as a child. But see, he didn't understand the fullness of what God was going to do because when God arrested him on that road, and he went to share with Ananias to go talk to him. Ananias came, he's seen what Paul was and the shape that he was pursuing from the outside, in the natural. God turns and says, Ananias, I want you to go and lay your hands on this Saul, Shaul. Ananias said, God, I heard a lot about this man. This man is a horrible man. He's dragging people out, arresting people. He's got it. Are we clear? This man is a dangerous man. And then God says, arise and touch him, for he is a chosen vessel unto me. I'm sending him to go in. He has a special anointing on him. I must show him what great things that he must suffer for my name's sake. He's unique. He's called to me. And Ananias went and laid his hands on him, and we know the story. As Paul gets up, nice scene. Everything changes. His whole walk changes. because he had to understand that God was going to use him right where he called him, because I'm using you as someone to be a tool for me, to be able to break down this word. So you walk and you know it. So you think it's because of you that you had the intellect. But I'm the one who made your mind. I'm the one who shifted your heart. I'm the one who knows what you can contain and how you're going to articulate. I'm the one who set you at the feet of Gamaliel. I'm the one who put you in an environment where you would have the tools and the methodology and the wherewithal to travel like I had. I purposed you. I shaped you. It wasn't by happy chance. It wasn't by your goodness. It wasn't by your parents. It wasn't by your grace. I had chosen you from the beginning and bring all the resources to bear so that you can fulfill the call I placed in your life. Paul says, now I understand. So the council understood all what Paul said and understood the uniqueness of his call. When they came out, and they embraced him, gave him the right hand of fellowship, and told him to move forward in that direction. But how many of you guys know habits are hard to break? It's one thing to do some things, but then you have some things that you do just too habitually, and habits can be hard to break. Ask my wife. She knows I'm great at just moving forward. I have no habits. I have no iniquitous ways. I have no brokenness within me. Once I change, I'm just perfect. Well, Cal, I hate to mislead you. That don't happen. You know how I know that's true? I talked to Kathleen. She'll tell you. She just chuckles. Don't encourage him. I've been working on it for years. But no, habits are hard to break. So Paul shares an account that supports this truth. That's what he talks about when he opens up, when we turn to Galatians, the second chapter, 11th verse, starts speaking with Paul confronting Peter. Let me go back there, and I'll just read this. I'll read this, and then I'll share with it. Galatians, the second chapter, verse 11 says, furthermore, Cephas, Peter, came to Antioch. And he says, I opposed him publicly because he was clearly in the wrong. For prior to the arrival of certain people from the community headed by Jacob, James, he had been eating with the Goyim believers, with the God-fearers. He had been eating with these God-fearers and the people that we had there in Antioch. He said, but when they came, he withdrew himself, separated himself because he was afraid of the faction of these influencers that came before him. And he said, and his other brethren, my people, he said, they became hypocrites as well, along with him, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not walking a straight path, keeping in line with the truth of the gospel, of the good news, as I confronted Peter publicly to his face and said, you're wrong. The text gets a little bit more explicit as he's just breaking it down, but he said, something's wrong here. You were doing well when you came, and all of a sudden you shifted. Peter had come down to the city of Antioch at this time when he came down. And why would he come down? He said, because Antioch was the second largest city of believers. Those are a messianic mindset, those that had received Yeshua and understood the death, burial, and resurrection outside of Jerusalem. Outside of Jerusalem, it said there's two major large metropolitan cities. One was more dominant with our Jewish brethren, and one was filled more dominant with the God-fearers. But as they came in, Peter come down to Antioch. This is years later, just as he comes into the city, and what he ran into, couldn't believe. He walked in there, and he ran into an incredible community of believers. He watched them, whether it be, whether they've been Jewish at birth, or God-fearers, or anything in between. Those that believed in Yeshua, they were all one. He walked in there, and they had broken down the walls of separation. Ethnicity had nothing to do with that. Where they came from had nothing to do with it. If you believed in Yeshua, they were fellowshipping. They were worshiping together and all among their various different synagogues. I know they had 3 or 4 of them. They had to, in that huge city, huge metropolis. They were fellowshipping, they were worshiping, meeting together. They were coming forward, whether it been for the Shabbat, for the feast days, for the various different Moedim, or God's celebration. They all just come together as one. They said they even were meeting together, whether it's breaking the bread together. They were eating, having fellowship, thoroughly enjoying themselves. When Peter came down from Jerusalem and came down there, he stood amazed because there was no distinction there. There was no divisive walls in between them. They were all worshiping as one. They were fellowshipping as one. And he did the same thing. He sat down with them and he started eating and talking with Paul and talking with this gathering of believers. They were just having a wonderful time. The Spirit would fall in the house. They said, in Corinth, it said that they contained all the gifts and manifestations. They were speaking in tongues. They were prophesying. They were healing. They were worshiping. The powers were all on display. As Peter walked in the house, it wasn't like they were running out trying to get Paul to come pray for this person. The Spirit was such that even a little lady or a little man reached out, he would speak and cause God's word prophetically to come to pass. They were speaking, touching, healing, putting hands on the lame. Peter could just, as he stood to watch, he's watching the full manifestation of God's power in that community. And as they fellowshiped together, they were all of one accord. And he's thinking like, wow. As he walked among them, he was enjoying the same thing. They looked up to him, they probably said, oh, Peter, but look at Shem. Look at my brother. Come. My wife will be pleased. We heard a lot about you. Come to our house. We have dinner. They'll prepare a great feast for him. As he's walking in, or Peter would come back on the opposite side of the street, or Paul would sit there. Didn't make a difference. He sat in the house, and there's Paul and Barnabas and all the people sitting and fellowshipping and partaking. And Peter's looking at Paul and Barnabas, and he's sitting down with them. And some of the factions that came with Peter, they all were sitting there, and they all are partaking. They all are fellowship. They're all in one accord. Nothing was divisive about them. One accord. They're worshiping him. As I looked at them, there's a mindset in how you treat guests. And in Jerusalem, they would do that as such. Whereas, they would bring somebody in-house specifically to come in. If you're going to be my guest, I'll treat you a certain way. But if you're my brethren, I see you every day, we see each other every week, see each other all the time. I'm going to look up and say, hey, Deborah, do you want something to eat? Yeah, I'll get you something to eat. Go ahead and grab something. Grab a plate, But, you let a visitor come in the house, and I look up and say, would you like something to eat? Oh, yes, sir. Well, why don't you have a seat? Put your feet up. Are you comfortable? Okay. Is it too cool in the room? Should I turn down the thermostat? Are you okay? Let me go get you something. See, I altered you. Because you're a guest. But they were worshiping, and they weren't treating each other as guests. They were treating each other as brothers and sisters. It put me in mind of when we got married. See, I used to go over her parents' house, and Anita was living at home, and I would want to visit them. I don't just walk in the house. I don't care, because I'm dating her, don't mean I own that house. So I go up to the house, and I go up to the door and go, yeah, I said, hi, it's Matthew. Okay, then you can come on in, and hold on a second, okay, now come on in. They just, hello, who's there? Oh, this is Matthew. I come see Anita. Is Anita home? Oh, yeah, she's home. You can come on in. And, it was all good. We got married. When we got married, and we became family. I walked into the house. Before going in, I got this. And Mom said, "Who's there?" I said, "Matthew." She said, "What you knocking for?" I said, "Well, of course, I'm looking for you to invite me into your home. You don't have to knock. Just come on in, your family." I walk in. Sometimes I wouldn't say anything. "You better not knock anymore. Come on in. Your family." In fact, I come on in, and now I'm coming to sit down and stuff, and she says stuff like, she's always wanted to prepare for you. "Are you hungry?" And I would say, oh yeah, I can take a little bit of something before married. "Let me go get you something." And she'd go in the kitchen and bring me back something to eat and stuff like that. Now, I go in the house and I said, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Oh yeah. Look in the icebox. There's something in there for you." And I'm like, "Huh? If you're hungry, just go get anything. Just go to the icebox. You're home. Your family." So you walk in the kitchen, you get something. She said, "Get it out of the cupboard. Get what you want." Or if I come out with the camp, "Can I have this?" You can have anything you want. Just enjoy yourself. Your family. Peter walks into that city, and they weren't treating each other as guests. They were treating everything. Walls are down, and everyone was introduced. Everyone was fellowshipping as family. They're intermingling, interacting. And Peter was thoroughly amazed, just beyond belief. What kind of community? I mean, as you see them fellowshipping, I made a little note. I started thinking about all that transpired. I said, he would have thought it was shofar. See, he walked in the house and everyone told us, these people like each other. I think they're just all one. They're just, see, that whole environment. He stepped into a shofar. And everyone just, they're just hugging, kissing on him, and they're dancing and fellowship and move up a table. Come on, sit down. I said, wow. An amazing community that he stepped into. And it just blessed his heart. He was so excited about what was taking place, seeing all of those there. See, because then I think he had a little reflection of deja vu. Because as he went in there and he stepped among these God-fearers, he's realizing a little bit, I experienced this before. See, because he was the first one that God had broke down the walls with to show him where all this was going. See, when that vision of the sheep came down, he's thinking, no, there's always been a wall of distinction between I and God-fearers, or the goyim, as such. And God said, don't you call unclean what I've cleaned. And so when Peter went over to the house of Cornelius, so guys, God rest his thought, he went in the house and he still had that mindset, because he told Cornelius, just as it began, he said, well, it's not lawful for a Jewish man to step into the home of a Gentile. There's a distinction here. He said, but I see where God told me not to call unclean what he's clean. He said, but he's trying to set it up, and Cornelius looked at him and says, well, God told you just to come. He said, just call you, and you're just going to share with us what he gave you. He starts speaking, and he said, before he got all out of his mouth, he starts saying, well, the Spirit fell in the house, And they all start speaking in tongues, and the same Spirit that quickened them at Shavuot that happened in the house. And Peter starts thinking like, oh my! And even the people that he came as witnesses with him, some of his other friends, they all standing with their mouth open, and they said, we understand that God is not a respecter of person. He's still something. And you know what they said? Scripture goes ahead and says, they sat out and they ate with them. They had fellowship with them. They talked with them, enjoyed fellowship. A little microcosm of what he read into in Corinth. He's seen it on a larger level. But he already stepped into the house. See, because his brother, when he went back to him, says, we heard that you went into the Goyim's house and you sat there eating with them, you're fellowshipping. He said, and then he told them the story. What God did, they said, well, leave it alone. But he felt it. And he did it. He comes here and he's sensing the same feeling that transpired. Because what he felt was, he was feeling the uniting spirit of God's unity, where God had removed the walls and made his people one. As they're quickening and standing in front of them, they can understand that there's no division among them. And all their uniqueness, there's no division. And the Holy Spirit fall in, he was feeling the uniting of the Spirit of God's unity. And he was enjoying it until certain people come down from Jerusalem. These influencers, these type of people, they came in the community. And something changed. See, as they come in, I've seen a scene from a movie in which a couple really care for each other. They're both of two different ethnicities. It's in the early part of the century, but they really care for each other. And in this collective arena that they were dwelling in, those walls of distinction, those walls of separation, those walls of divisiveness were gone. Everyone looked at each other as equals. And so, he was even looking at her as equal. And he wanted to, you can see the relationship blossom. I need you, sweetheart. And there's a powerful scene. I've become on this side of me. There's a powerful scene where they're standing together and the environment was such that they wanted just to hold hands and just show the heart, the feeling. And he reached out. She was sitting like this, and he reached out, and they kind of touched her fingertips. And she touched his. And then, it was like they sensed this was the same, they were on the same page. And not only did he touch her fingertips, he reached out and he grabbed her whole hand. As he grabbed her whole hand, you can see her eyes, and she's like this, because she's thinking like, is this possible? They both really care for each other. He grabs her hand like this. He's feeling the emotion as well. Then he just happened to glance up. And when he happened to glance up, he was in an arena where his parents could see him. And he was of high class birth. And as he touched her hand, he looks up and he sees his parents, and they're looking at him like, and all of a sudden he does like this. And she senses the hurt, everything is going well until he was intimidated. He immediately let go. He stand like this. Thank you, sir. When I seen that, I said that was a perfect picture of what happened to Peter. He came in that community. He was fellowship among all of them. He was enjoying himself. His heart was blessed. He remembered deja vu. He's sitting in the midst of it. He's going, gathering hands. And just like that guy did this, when those influencers, those people came down, all of a sudden you see him go. He started backing up. And he started thinking, habits are hard to break. You start rethinking that piece. But as we talked about at the Seder, when Yeshua took that cup and he raised that cup, what they perceived as something new, Yeshua was taking them to a whole new phase, a refreshness of what God was going to do within the earth and what the whole redemptive purpose of his act was about. So as that new phase was being displayed, and they weren't able to grasp the whole thing, Peter was sensing as that whole new phase was awakening before them. What he was sensing was God was revealing the full expression of his redeeming glory in the earth. The coming together of all mankind. He walked into it, he sensed it, he stepped into it fully. It was so welcoming. But when he realized something shifted, he was right in the midst of all of it. It put me in mind of what happened when he stepped out of that boat. See, he stepped into the miraculous. He stepped out of the boat when Yeshua said, come. He stepped out of the boat and he started doing something that he didn't think was possible. As he started walking on the water, look at Christ. As he was walking, he was doing so well. Until something shifted. Just for a moment. He felt the wind blow and he said, he took his eyes from there down to here and he started to sink. I envision that's probably what happened to him. as he stood in that community, when these people came down, he took his eyes off and he started looking around. He was feeling all uncertainty. He felt something shift. You know why? Because the status quo has shifted in the atmosphere. And he wasn't ready for it. And when he realized the status quo had shifted, his hands dropped. See, in Antioch, what Peter walked into was that the walls of the division had fallen. The whole new culture that was there. See, as they came before God and they worshiped among his feast and then within the services, they stood before him unashamed of lives. They just fellowship, unabashed. Just like these babies. When these babies came up here, they weren't looking around and seeing what would people think. They were just so caught up. They were just dancing freely in it. And he said that was happening until certain people intervened. You know the interesting thing? When I read this story, you know what it made me think of? It made me think of the rabbi and Myra's relationship. It's a perfect example of what happened here. See, the rabbi and I are very, very close. I remember years ago when we first met, I just had a strong heart that was drawn to him. I remember when he called the bank at that time, and I told him, I says, he was soliciting for an ad, and I told him, I says, I know you. He's like, you do? I said, I've seen you. I said, I was the one that came up to you in Sam's, and I greeted your family. And he's thinking like, really? Oh, yeah. I said, yeah, you had a large cart, you had the kids with them and stuff. And, and we, as a relationship that was kindled and just continued to blossom. But the beautiful part about it is I understand him and his role explicitly. See, I don't have to worry about being ascetic. I'm not. I don't understand about being observant as he is. As a ascetic, he's very observant of God's Torah. He's a teacher. I know where he stands, and I understand the fullness of where he is. He understands and knows exactly where I am. We both come from two different worlds. But as we come together, and you guys all are part of that equation too, because as I talk about him a lot, you guys all start going down and intermingling, and Rabbi's looking at him, and he understands, and he just is pleased with all of them. He says, I understand his unique distinction, what he's called to do, on the role he's playing in God's economy. And we both of us, as we talk and share, we acknowledge our distinct uniqueness. I think it's so funny because I come down and I'll walk up to him, we hug and we share, we laugh and speak, and I'll come before his community and he'll look up and say, this is the man of God. He understands my heart. He understands my thoughts, and he appreciates the value that we have. And I on the same side, I do the same with him. I reach out and grab him and speak words in the world in which he lives. He knows exactly where I stand. And in all of our cultural differences, our love for each other continues to grow and just blossom. I understand the specialness of his position and of the culture. Because I remember my very first met Hani. I'm stepping across into my world. We'll walk in here and I'll give each of you guys, just a brotherly hug and kiss and stuff. And how you guys doing? And put their arms around and touch them and stuff. Say, hey, what's going on? And besides, I come from a touchy family anyway. My mom would reach up and she'll see she cares for you. I remember she'll grab you, poke up your lips, and she'll give you a big kiss. You know my son? Oh, my son? You like my son? Oh, how are you, baby? And she just hug and kiss, and she's so friendly, and she just grab on him. So I just, same way. I walk up, and I remember first thing I see Hani, I said, hi, how are you doing? I put her hand, and she went there, and she kind of stood back a little bit and just kept talking. She said, I'm very fine. So I said, yeah, my name is Matthew. And she stood like this. And then I understood that they don't touch anyone like that outside their husband or their mate. Women don't do that specifically. Even to the point, I've seen her, she always wears these wigs. I'm thinking, this is just the hairstyle she's got. Because, my sisters wear wigs, my family wears wigs, they wear them all the time. And then I understood, because they don't display their hair just to the public, the hair is the glory of the woman, that she maintains that line for her husband. So I'm just growing and understanding different things. And I remember my mom, she met the rabbi, and I didn't have a chance to head her off. And the rabbi had come up into my environment, and I said, Mom, this is the rabbi. I talk about him a lot. This is the rabbi. Oh, baby, how are you? And before I could say anything, she goes, and I'm like this. And you know what? He didn't do anything. He didn't look up and say, what did you do? Defiled. Yeah, no, like that. No. He didn't say anything. He looked at her and he smiled because he honored her as my mother. And he looked at her and he said, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you? Kept his distance. And he just talked. Afterwards, I'm told Mom, I said, Mom, I can't believe you kissed him. I said, they don't like you to do that. I said, men don't do that. And, I don't touch women's stuff. And then also she said, oh. And she just stepped into a position. So now when she sees him, she look at him and she say, how are you? Very well. She said, you're just blessed. And she would just talk to him, but she maintained it. And that's what, understand the uniqueness of each of our in their lives. Even his little daughters do that. I walk with their daughters just like a mom. Hi, how are you? I know better. You look wonderful. I love your dress. And you look wonderful. But the little boys, we're good. They walk up to me and say, how are you doing? They shake my hand and they still to this day acknowledge that piece. And I want you guys to do the same thing. Understand his uniqueness, where God called him, what he's doing in his arena. And you say, okay, I understand who he is and where he stands in his community. Even at times, our closeness is hindered at times. Why? Because there's influences as such in his community. And they'll look and they they understand how he functions, but they still struggle with this wall that's there. They'll let you go so far. It happens on both sides. See, like the rabbi and I can do much more together. Peace's sake, we may not go so far. And I don't want to go into all the details. But on our side, people do the same thing. They understand how close we are. You know what the people say? See, on his side, they'll say, is he kosher? On my side, they say, is he saved? Have you witnessed to him? Have you saved him? I'm like, well, the whole goal and your objective is to make sure he's saved. How can you fellowship with him without doing this? Influencers. Anything to bring up divisive walls. It happens. It made me think of this thing when I said Peter stepped into an environment. When he seen walls were falling, he loved it with the peace that was being expressed. Until someone came in and threw up a wall to try to get him to go back. See, I think with those walls down, this is where God would have us to be, where God would have us to go. I think what God is telling us in this season is to embrace our collective oneness and the beauty of our uniqueness that God has called us within his creation. We all are playing distinct roles, actions. As Paul said, Paul used that analogy because he was trying to get us to understand this. You know what he said? Everyone isn't an eye, and you all are ears. He says, because if everyone's an eye, he says, then where would the hearing be? He says, Although everyone is nigh and everyone is near, he said, we're all part of the same body. We're all a one. Great analogy. So Peter was a leader in that community. He came there, I think as he stepped inside there and started seeing that, his unbalanced emotions caused the others to follow suit. I mean, he came here because he was doing well. He was doing so well with them. But when the influences came here, all of a sudden, hands were dropped. He started to back up. His influence and his position was even so powerful that it caused even Barnabas. This is Barnabas' home church. He's the one who helped start the whole thing. He was with them all. They went out and they started, he and Paul started this whole thing. They understand the fullness of the vision. The influence he came inside, it shook even Barnabas. Paul says, when I looked up and seen not only the other people that's part of it, but even Barnabas. Oh, you guys are just looking at me. You know what that'd be like? That'd be like all you guys functioning in here, you come in here, and I, the leader, one of the part of it, all of a sudden look up and try and say, oh. If I start acting funny, hey, but come on, I'm looking around saying, how come they're all sitting together? The women should be on one side, the men should be on this. And the kids in the same room, they look at him saying, Rabbi, what do you thought? You guys, I heard people say, you guys are the most hugging, kissing people I ever seen. Stand up, my brother. So I come up to it, it'd be like me coming in this room like this. Hey, go ahead and try to give me a hug. Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you in the house. As long as I know Cynthia. Hey, how you doing? Cynthia goes, oh, Rabbi, how you doing? I'm going, oh, how are you? Everyone in their minds will look up and says, what is wrong with him? He used to be so warm. He used to be so caring. But now something changed. And people in the city probably looked up and said, even Barnabas, he used to be so warm and so caring. Now all of a sudden he started getting a little standoffish. Something happened. Peter and all the other people that came in, they said, something happened. So Paul says, I confronted him to his face, for he was clearly wrong. He says, what you did is wrong. And he says, you can sit down, brother. He turns and says, and you, the leader, you did this. No. I think this message of what just transpired, God had us visit this because it's for us. It's for me, and it helped me immensely where he was speaking. Because what he told me in the revelation of the thought, he says, we as a people, we as a group, we as a members of a gathering of Shofar, he said, we must come into balance where we must learn to recognize and embrace our uniqueness. The uniqueness that God has called us, as to where and how God has called us. What are you saying, Rabbi? You're just soft pedaling this. You're saying something, but you're getting soft on it. See, I used to always fight because you know what I try to do? I try to be more Jew than Jew. God said, I can call you for that. I got a very distinct call on you. I birthed you how you are. I birthed you, had you to do what you had to do. No, you weren't strong in that persuasion because I didn't mean for it to be that persuasion. He says we all have a role to play in his God's economy. The role he said that's the role and the vision of Shofar, our house. You know what our house is? Our house, it's called us to be a bridge, to unite, not divide. To understand who we are and how we function. We are to bridge, confident in who he called us to be able to function in the power that he called us to be. Amen. To become a bridge over hearts where people are still fighting that stigma to understand how big God's kingdom really is. He says we are to understand and know our call, which is why he put us in this book to understand. I'm searching strong. I'm thinking like, if I, I'm not belittling it. I'm searching strong. Said, I'm checking out my DNA. I'll make sure I'm not Jewish. I want to be Jewish. I want to be Jewish. I want to be Jewish. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it can be unbalanced. Because just like when God made me who I am, he gave me my voice. He gave me my height. When he told me, when I was talking about this thing with shofar saying, I don't want the him. He says, stop it. I called you because I know exactly who you are. Anita and I used to say, throughout our whole lives, it seemed like we're always breaking down walls. We're always crossing bridges. God has used fallen walls before us all the time. So when he called me into this ministry, he says, I'm calling you for a unique purpose because I know I've given you the grace that you can break down walls. And you can join people together. Stop all this divisiveness. I made you unique. I gave you the voice. I gave you the resources because I want you to build bridges. And I want you people and you guys to cross. And it's so funny that when I walked in the rabbi, he said the same thing. He hasn't been with us over in Israel. He hasn't been with us. We came very close, but he hasn't been with us. And you know what he says? He tells me all the time, your people are the most wonderful people. The hearts that they have and how they interact, he said, they're just so wonderful. They're so loving. They're reflecting of the head. The way I feel, just like mom. Same thing. We go over to Israel, get on the bus, you know what they say? People come, we think it's so welcome when you guys come because your people are different from other people that come. Why? I have, my group leaders all the time are saying that. There's something about the spirit in your people. They embrace. They aren't intimidated. I love them. I've led a lot of tours. I haven't seen people like yours come like that. And I'm saying, what are they seeing? They're seeing the heart of shofar. God says, I called you, in the uniqueness I called you, to be a bridge, to unite, not divide. After the Seder, I'm thinking in this message that God's given me, after the Seder, this is unique. I'm saying the Seder. After the Seder, I had someone coming to me. I was just sharing. You know what they asked me? So what tribe do you guys associate with? I said, I'm looking at, I'm somewhat reeling because I'm just coming out. I'm coming off the stage and I'm just moving, toward the people. I only talked to maybe a couple of people, and they came up to me and said, and they're just, the calls have been warm. So, I watch you guys, I'm just so impressed. So what tribe do you guys associate with? I mean, are you guys of Manasseh? Are you guys of Ephraim? So how are you guys aligned? And my eyes went there, what do you mean, what tribe? I'm thinking, I'm not going that route with all that. Then I had someone come up right behind that. Right behind that. And look at, you know what they asked me? Have you heard about the Ethiopian Jews come back and how your people of color are part of the lost tribe? And they're truly the original ones. They're truly the original Israelites. And I'm just thinking like, tribes, ethnicities, and people, and the stuff that's been shared, you're going back and saying, where were you aligned? And God's saying, I'm breaking down all that stuff. There's people coming in from every ethnicity, Jew and Goyim and people that's on the web all around the world. They're coming in, not looking for a tribe, they're looking for Yeshua. They're looking for an understanding of the oneness of God as God is bringing all the world together. Yes. They're looking for the linking, what God is doing within it. See, what that came up to me at the end of that Seder was nothing more but a subtle strategy of divisiveness. Where do you fit? In heaven. In his glory. Yes. I fit with Yeshua HaMashiach. And in here, there's not bond or free or different denominations and such. I am stepping here, and I'm just trying to be an oracle for the voice of God who's speaking on earth. That's all I'm doing. God says, don't pursue that stuff. That's nothing but divisiveness. What difference does all that stuff makes? We're all a part of the same body, called by God of distinction to embrace our uniqueness and be of one mind and one accord. That's what he's calling us to do, and that's what he's asking us to be. That's what this story is showing as he brought it forth. You know, God will have us, to understand and be comfortable and confident in who you are. How did he save you? How did he enter your life? He's using the uniqueness of who you are, your thumbprint. He needed that thumbprint because you're going to touch people that I could never touch. Your equation, when you walk into that marketplace on the job, he said, as a vehicle, a child of the king, he said, I called you Rebecca, I called you Deborah, I called you Tamar, I called you guys that put you in various different environments so that walls can fall down. The spirit of unity could be one. You can speak the love of God to the people, not based on the thought of saying, are you Catholic? Are you Presbyterian? What church do you go to? Are you Jewish? Are you Methodist? I mean, what is it? God said, stop that stuff. What Peter seen when he walked inside that city, he's seen where walls of divisiveness and division fallen. Just like when Yeshua split the curtain. Stop this divisiveness. Matthew, I called you in this ministry to be a bridge, to unite, bring them back to my original intent, and get them to understand that his word's one. He's the same God's given the same principles. We take people to the land. Why? To reconnect their hearts to the covenant land, to its people, and to God's purposes. Most of all, we're called to be a bridge to mend these breaches. So, in this book of Galatians, God wanted me to see an example that stood before us. People could make a big issue about, was Peter right? Was he wrong? What was taking place? God, break that stuff, because God brought down walls to display the unity of who he is. Don't feel uncomfortable because you may not be of Jewish persuasion. God didn't want you that way. He wanted to use you just the way you were. And if you are of Jewish persuasion, he said, don't be uncomfortable. I called you that way because I need you to be part of this economy, just like I have the snowflakes, the raindrops, thumbprints, everything is unique. I called you to be part of my economy. In the nature in which I called you, I want you to be effective. I don't want you to despise what I've created. He said, Joanne, he says, I made you just like you were. Your height, your nose, ears, I made you. Because the way that you walk and the way that you are, family I put you into, see, you can touch Ali like I can never touch him. He said, but I knew you had to look like a Meeks in order to speak into his heart. So I made you like a Meeks. Twana, I made you as such. That's unique. See, because I could never reach and touch your sister like you could. Even with Kyle, I'm reaching for this one. I am teasing. Kyle, I've never seen someone with such a sensitive heart toward God. I watched the way he prays, and I watched the hunger and the desire that he has for God's presence. He will speak in this house and will melt hearts because he's seeking God's presence in a unique way that I could never touch. But he quickens and softens my heart with his words. A uniqueness in this house, in his culture, in his way, that he'll walk up to me with the fervency of God and he'll try to say, only to say, he walks up to me and goes, like this. God said, and my heart just shakes. And God says, see, you can't despise who he made in him. Powerful man. Unique unto himself. There's no one else like him in this room. Because he's a integral part of God's economy and equation. This woman up here, an incredible, incredible, incredible gift that the enemy has been trying to keep her silent because he's fearful of the uniqueness that she contains. And as he's been pulling and unveiling the onion, the world is standing here. Friends are standing and telling us, like, oh my God, I see what God is shaping in her. Her thumbprint, the uniqueness that she has. No one like her. And she is a embodiment of peace and unity like no one else I've seen on earth. She's a bridge. She's an embodiment of this vision. So again, as I stepped into this study, God would have us to know, understand our call and our uniqueness. I am Shofar. And I am proud of what God has called me to be, the role I play, the uniqueness of the people He'll put me with, people placed around me, and I'm proud of what He shaped me, because I bring a unique flavor to the life of those that come around me. Amen? Amen. Amen.